seems like nowadays I turn on my radio or turn on my television and it looks like the world is going crazy around me. And you know, it's funny because a lot of people, it feels like they don't know what to believe anymore. We don't know who to believe anymore. And so some among us will believe whoever is speaking the loudest. Or so it seems.
You can close your eyes, but I am never going blindly again.
Now, as for me personally, I've never been one to quite go with the crowd, and I've always had this feeling that maybe we could kind of make the world that we would like to live in. But in order to do that, we need to really see where we think we're going. I'll say, yo, 1, 2, this is how we do. Recognize you in the place without the original crew. And you can close your eyes, but I am never going blindly. Turning forward, yes, we will.
Hey everybody, this is Random Access, and you're here with Random Thoughts with Random Access. I messed up the beginning there with the audio. Yeah, you probably caught that. It went down, came back up again. I apologize. I'm going to work that out. It threw off my introduction. But this is me playing around with this 1 minute, 2 minute intro. That was Close Your Eyes by Derrick Ashong, A-S-H-O-N-G, Derrick Ashong, also known as DNA, with Soulfege off the album Afropolitan. Full disclosure, I've got artist permission to use that song as in the title credits here. I'll probably post this up on YouTube again and get another copyright notice, and I'll write them back saying I have the artist's permission, written permission from the artist to use this song for my Random Thoughts with Random Access videos. I just love that intro to that song. Close Your Eyes by Derrick Ashong and Soulfege off Afropolitan. Afropolitan's a great album. This was part of his million album giveaway. It was you can look up Derrick Ashong. He's an interesting guy. And he one of the things he did is he put this album together and he gave it away for free on the internet. And he just gave it away. That was he's real big about trying to promote communication and using the internet for communication, but communication in general, which is a big topic for me. This wasn't even sure that I was going to talk about this today. I was I was going to talk about something else sort of related to this, but it got me thinking as I mentioned Derrick's song there. Wow. But communication, I like to talk about the language handshake when I think about communication, and so let me just mention that right now. I hold up my hands, a little picture like this, and the cogs here, the interlacing, represents the language that has to dovetail together, and the thumbs are the thoughts in our heads. I have a thought in my head, and I want to communicate that to a thought in your head, and I get the thought out of my head. I use language. And then hopefully you have the necessary language there so that it dovetails together, and then that language now is communicated into a thought in your head, so we can communicate thoughts, and communicating thoughts communicates in many cases feelings. Thoughts and feelings are very, very closely related. There's a one model of the way the brain works. In that your thoughts are triggering your emotions, and then of course there's a feedback loop where it's thoughts trigger feelings. Those feelings, bloom into emotions. Emotions become triggers for action, either to do something or not to do something. But there's an emotional trigger to make it's fight or flight or freeze. And those actions result in consequences. Those consequences, of course, now provide a new situation for you to think about. Because the thoughts, where are the thoughts? How are they triggered? What triggers thoughts? What initiates thoughts? A lot of times it's our experience, our interaction with the universe. It's our interaction with some stimulus of some sort, some perceptive interaction. We feel something, we touch something, we smell something, we hear something. We can think about something. There's a sense of thought, and then that process triggers more thoughts, and those thoughts eventually spin up into a feeling, an emotional response, into action, into consequence. That consequence creates a new scenario, a new situation for us to perceive. And once we perceive that, so it's a cycle. And humans are imperfect perceptors. We're not very good. I shouldn't say we're not very good, but in some very real sense, we're not very good at sensing the universe. We don't have perfect vision. We don't have perfect hearing. We don't have perfect touch. And what we are pretty good at, in one way our senses do work, we're pretty good at sensing differences between things. We're not very good absolute perceptors, but humans are pretty good at perceiving differences in things, differences in colors, differences in sounds, differences in taste. But absolute perception, we're not very good at. And what that ultimately translates into is, while we're very good at perceiving differences, we don't really have an anchor to tell us, where does it all start? when you string together a bunch of differences, you have a lot of relative sense of how things are, but you might not have the best absolute sense. And humans, and that's what I mean when we're imperfect perceptors. We don't have absolute perception. We have pretty good relative perception, but we don't have very good absolute perception. Well, what does that mean? That means incomplete perception is going to lead to distorted thinking, because we don't have all the facts. To put it quite simply, we don't have all the facts, but we're going to have these thoughts, and based on those thoughts, we're going to trigger very real feelings. Those are the feelings that need to be triggered by the thoughts we're having. The feelings are not the issue. The feelings are not the problem. The feelings are being triggered by thoughts, and it's the thoughts that we can concentrate on and think about. And I spend a lot of time thinking about thoughts, thinking about random thoughts. And sometimes I think about it a little too much, and I can get caught into this, what I like to refer to as paralysis by analysis, where I'm, it's just a lot of thinking, and so much thinking that the feelings don't sort of come to life enough to trigger any action. And so I can sit there, and it's almost like daydreaming. A lot of inactivity, spinning the wheels. A lot of thought is not necessarily a good thing. You need to have enough thought that you're triggering an emotional response that leads to an action, so that way you can have a new experience, and then you can have new thoughts. If you don't break out of that cycle of thought, then you don't ever get it. I should be using absolutes. That's one of my big things. I'm an all or nothing thinker. I'm a black and white thinker. It's either always or never. And when I use those words, I think on some level, subconsciously, I know I don't mean them, but they do kind of become reinforcing. If I think something, and I think we all do this, if I start telling myself, it's always like this, it's always like this, it's always like this, and especially if it's a negative thing, then whenever there's a situation where that thought comes up, automatically I'm putting myself into a negative frame of mind. And because it's always like that, there's a finality to it. There's a hopelessness. There's this. Of course, it's a negative. Of course, I feel bad right now because I'm dealing with a negative situation. I'm dealing with a crisis, and that's all because of these thoughts. And sometimes I just need to, stop thinking enough to let the thoughts play out into an action, play out through a mature emotional response, or even an immature emotional response, as long as I'm willing to learn from it. But it's to trigger an action, have a consequence, experience something different than I was experiencing before, hopefully triggering a new thought. And if I can play this game right, I can keep my thoughts, feelings, actions, and consequences on the right track. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this little short video, and there'll be more to follow. Thanks.